As difficult as it was for me, I have come to an inescapable and profoundly disturbing conclusion. I believe that an elite group of people and the corporations they run have gained control over not just our energy, food supply, education, and healthcare, but over virtually every aspect of our lives. And they do it by controlling the world of finance, not by creating more value, but by actually controlling the source of money. When I followed the money, I found that it took me up the levels of a pyramid. Here we are at the bottom level going about our daily lives. Above us is government, people who are given a monopoly on force and use it to tax and control us whether or not we agree. But who controls them? At the next level are the corporations. Many would say that it is now corporations and not nation states that rule the world. They call it a corporatocracy. To acquire the world's resources and control the markets, this corporatocracy must have access to cheap money. The big corporations get their loans at special rates from the big banks, which means that those who control the major banks, the moneyed elite, ultimately control the corporations. As I've followed the money, I've learned that almost everything I once believed about money is simply not true.
All right, here in my buddy for how much here? It's $70 now one. It's $71 $1 to one now two $3 $2 4 74 to 5. It's $71 $2 $82 $171 2 now quarter 82 25 50 225 50 75 3 $3 and a quarter and a half 83 3 50 3 25 50 3 25 50. It's 3 25 3 50 3 25 3 50 3 50 sold and chat 3 now got a man 2 now 3 money's in 6 25 here quarter sold the cattle 67 7 47 do you want him? It 47 7 it 49 $50 49.
This segment briefly summarizes all the major events that have caused the destruction of humanity's wealth and the death of millions of lives. This is intended to illustrate and substantiate the urgent need for the Gini Foundation and the Gini cryptocurrency. It's also intended to provide additional resources for those who wish to research these topics further.
Are you a slave?
That's not right. How can the price be going down? Something's wrong.
Since the early 1980s, the US and global economies have mutated and deviated far from the economic system that Adam Smith had in mind when he invented the word capitalism. Today, our global economy is collapsing and the middle class in many countries is disintegrating.
That we shall not see coming by a hostile flag of conquest, but by a banner of freedom and peace. We have vowed that we shall not see space filled with weapons of mass destruction.
When short-sighted politicians and gigantic banks do this to your economy, this is the inevitable result. I started in the U.S. Air Force, then I began working in the U.S. intelligence community as a cryptologist in 1997. With a top-secret security clearance, I produced cryptological reports for various agencies. These guys included the NSA, CIA, GCHQ, and other Department of Defense officials. Prior to the 9/11 terrorist attacks, I actually felt a genuine sense of pride in serving my country. However, about 8 months before 9/11, I noticed we were targeting civilians more frequently. I didn't sign up for that, so I left government service and went to work in the private sector. Later that year, 9/11 came and nearly 3,000 humans died unnecessarily because of short-sighted politicians and their destructive policies. You'll learn more about that a bit later. Since 9/11, the slow degradation of privacy that I witnessed while working for the government has become much, much worse. Today, dysfunctional governments and gigantic data mining corporations track every aspect of our existence, far worse than any of Orwell's nightmares. And even when they're not abusing our data, they're losing it to hackers who inevitably find ways to exploit the exploiters. These attacks would never occur if our personal information was truly private. Writing my books over the years, I've compiled thousands of pages of technical and economic data to substantiate the information in this film and on our Gini website. By the end of this film, you should see why Gini is technically and philosophically very different from all the other cryptocurrency projects today, and why Gini is worthy of your support.
After 9/11, all the wraps came off for NSA, and they decided to between the White House and NSA and CIA, they decided to eliminate the protections of U.S. citizens and collect on domestically. At that point, I knew I could not stay because of a direct violation of the constitutional rights of everybody in the country. Plus, it violated the Pen Register Law and Stored Communications Act, the Electronic Privacy Act, the Intelligence Acts of 1947 and 1978. I mean, it was just a whole series of, plus all the laws covering federal communications governing telecoms. I mean, all those laws are being violated, including the Constitution, and that was a decision made that wasn't going to be reversed, so I could not stay there. They've assembled on the order of 20 trillion transactions about U.S. citizens with other U.S. citizens.
How many?
20 trillion. The point is the data that's being assembled is about everybody. And from that data, then they can target anyone they want.
Even if you're not doing anything wrong, you're being watched and recorded. And the storage capability of these systems increases every year consistently by orders of magnitude, to where it's getting to the point you don't have to have done anything wrong. You simply have to eventually fall under suspicion from somebody, even by a wrong call. And then they can use the system to go back in time and scrutinize every decision you've ever made, every friend you've ever discussed something with, and attack you on that basis to sort of derive suspicion from an innocent life and paint anyone in the context of a wrongdoer.
I've interviewed a great number of people at NSA, and a lot of them have the same view that Mr. Snowden had.
Tom Drake went through every conceivable internal channel to his boss, to the Inspector General of the NSA, to the Department of Defense Inspector General, and to both houses of Congress. And not only did they fail to redress his problem, they turned around and sold him out and prosecuted him for espionage. And so I think Edward Snowden made the only choice he could make, which was to go outside of the United States to blow the whistle. Because right now, there is no protection for national security and intelligence whistleblowers.
The objective of this system is nothing less than the elimination of individual privacy worldwide. And at first glance, that might seem like it's a bit hyperbolic, like it's a little bit melodramatic, but it isn't. It's a literal description of what the NSA and its closest surveillance partners are attempting to achieve. And the reason that I know that that's what they're attempting to achieve is because this is what they say over and over and over again. On occasion, they say it publicly, and repeatedly they say it in their private documents, which were written when they thought nobody was able to hear what it was that they were saying. Collecting metadata is the supreme priority of the agency, not because it protects people's privacy, but precisely because it enables the NSA to invade people's privacy more effectively than the interception of content. And I think sometimes it's difficult to understand that in the abstract, but it's easy to understand it when concrete examples are used. And so if you can imagine, for example, a woman who decides that she wants to get an abortion, if you're listening in on her phone call, what you will hear is her calling a clinic. The clinic will answer with a generic sounding name like Eastside Clinic or something like that. You will hear the woman who you've decided to target for surveillance ask for an appointment Tuesday at 2 o'clock, get an appointment Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and then hang up the phone, and you'll have no idea why she called or even what kind of clinic she called or what the purpose was. But if you're collecting her metadata, you will see the phone number that she called. You will then be able to identify it as an abortion clinic. You will know how many times she called that clinic, and you will have exactly the information that you wouldn't get if you were simply listening to her phone call. The same with somebody who calls a suicide hotline or a drug addiction clinic, or somebody who is speaking with someone who is not their spouse late at night, or any number of other types of intimate activities that human beings engage in. that you probably wouldn't be able to apprehend if you're reading their emails or listening to their telephone calls, but that you will instantly be able to understand by collecting their metadata. And then beyond that, there are very sophisticated, increasingly sophisticated tools for analyzing metadata when it's collected in mass, to be able to understand not only who your targets are speaking to, but who those people are speaking to, and to develop a very comprehensive picture of the network of associations and friends of various individuals, but also of the society generally, to have a very invasive understanding of the private behavior, the private associations, the private thoughts. Mass indiscriminate spying goes far beyond metadata. One of the reports that we did in Sweden was about the program X-Keyscore, which is a very important program for the NSA and the GCHQ. But they also have now started to allow their closest surveillance partners, such as Sweden, access to this. It's about the ability to store emails and read them at will, to collect people's browsing histories, their chat logs, and their Google searches, essentially the content of communications of what is being done on the internet as well. That is very much a part of how privacy is being invaded. It is not just metadata. There are programs, including PRISM, that are all about content and not just metadata.
A society in which people can be monitored at all times is a society that breeds conformity and obedience and submission, which is why every tyrant, the most overt to the most subtle, craves that system. Conversely, even more importantly, it is a realm of privacy, the ability to go somewhere where we can think and reason and interact and speak without the judgmental eyes of others being cast upon us, in which creativity and exploration and dissent exclusively reside. And that is the reason why, when we allow a society to exist in which we're subject to constant monitoring, we allow the essence of human freedom to be severely crippled.
It falls back to the principles of totalitarianism and how dictators and so on have operated down through the centuries. I mean, it's know what your people are doing and find the ones who are not conforming to what you want them to do, and then get rid of them. And that's fundamentally what this process does. It gives them that kind of knowledge about everyone in the country. And if you start to speak up about some issue or something, you get noticed, and then they have all that data already assembled on you, and they simply go compile it and look at it and see how they could influence you to do what they would conceive to be the right thing. The problem is when you lose truth, you get into realms of deception and manipulation, and that is what destroys freedom. You can't really say you're free if you're being manipulated and being given false information to make judgments on. We have done to ourselves fundamentally what the terrorists wanted done but could never achieve. We have done to ourselves. And this is the domestic threat that our constitutional and the oath of office that we took was given to prevent. I mean, this is the only way no other country in the world could have done to us what we have done to ourselves. And so this is the time when all good Americans need to stand up and oppose this. Well, they're claiming it's legal because they got a law passed out of Congress that Congress still doesn't realize that even Sensenbrenner, who wrote the Patriot Act, said, we never intended you to be able to do what you're doing with this bulk collection of business records. Well, I mean, that's the violation of the intent of Congress, right there. The guy wrote the Patriot Act, so and he got it passed on that basis. And everything after that's been a distortion, a secret interpretation of this or that in the Patriot Act. And they never come out and tell anybody what they're really doing or what their real understanding or secret interpretation is. That's because they're too afraid. They're cowards. They're hiding behind a secret interpretation applied with a secret court in secret by a secret government. actually had nothing to do with the budget. They had plenty of a budget to do it. They didn't need any more money to make that happen. See, that was the issue. The issue was they wanted to build the budget up. So they wanted more money. So you don't do anything that would take away the problem that you're using to get more money. So you stop that and keep the problem going is the issue, right? So you still have a problem, therefore I need more money, so you get a bigger budget. If they say, well, let's implement this other program that solved the problem, well, then they don't have that problem to argue for money. So, and that's basically the way they viewed it and the way they operated, and a lot of contractors got rich off of it. That's getting back to why I keep saying they traded the security of everybody in the United States and the free world for money, because they wanted to, money was the issue, not solving the problem. Well, I mean, if you don't count the unconstitutional laws they passed to try to make it legal, then they're violating the pen register law for a total of at least 280 million records a day. I mean, persons a day. So the pen register on 280 million plus people every day is being violated. And you can argue the same for the 150 million or so of people who are on the internet. Then you can also say the Electronic Privacy Act is being violated, the Electronic Security Act, all the FISA regulations that were governing telecommunications companies and any communications company, and all the laws that were behind all of that, plus of course all the constitutional amendments, 1st, 4th, and 5th at least. So, and I'm sure if you looked around, there could be any number of others they're doing too. You know, that's a typical way that FBI would do entrapment procedures. They would try to entrap people by pretending to be who they weren't, and soliciting things. That's fundamentally how most of the cases that they say they've stopped have been stopped. I mean, it's people they solicit to do terrorism. When in fact the Leahy Committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee, querying the NSA, Alexander and all, said they started out saying, first of all, that the program, meaning the domestic spying program, prevented 56 terrorist attacks in the United States. And then when they were challenged by the committee over and over again, they finally boiled it down to 1. And they said, well, we got this fellow who transferred $8,500 to Al-Shabaab in North Africa, and that was one that this program stopped. Well, if the one end is in North Africa, that's not a domestic collection issue. So the answer is really 0. So their claim that this prevents terrorist attacks is absolutely false.
Are they actually doing any good here at all? In other words, have they been able to prevent another 9/11 in part because of this cyber technology? Has it done any good?
Not that I can say. I've written 3 books on the NSA, numerous articles, and a documentary for PBS. I've interviewed numerous people. I haven't seen any useful outcome from all this surveillance.
No use.
These agencies will do basically whatever they want to do and tell whatever story they want to the Congress or any other equivalent government organ anywhere in the world.
Does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir. Does the NSA routinely intercept American citizens' emails?
No.
Does the NSA intercept Americans' cell phone conversations?
No.
Google searches?
No.
Text messages?
No.
Amazon.com orders?
No.
Bank records?
We are not authorized to do it, nor do we do it. And the fact is, we do not do that in the United States without a warrant.
Those who would want to weave the story that we have millions or hundreds of millions of dossiers on people is absolutely false.
You have to be aware that these agencies are threatening what is fundamental to human rights everywhere.
When the anonymous human, Satoshi Nakamoto, created Bitcoin, he was trying to liberate humanity from the stranglehold of gigantic banks and tyrannical governments. But 10 years after Bitcoin's birth, the money supply of Bitcoin and all other major cryptocurrencies today has become even more centralized and concentrated than the fiat banking system. In fact, the money supply of the largest cryptocurrencies today are dominated by a tiny handful of crypto oligarchs, which will inevitably produce the same outcomes that humanity is suffering from today in the fiat banking system. Many people think Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies protect their privacy, but they do not. In fact, the architecture of Bitcoin and nearly all cryptocurrencies today gives gigantic institutions even more power to spy on us and to destroy our economic and political freedom. This makes existing cryptocurrencies the ultimate Trojan horse. What's the point of a cryptocurrency if it's not truly decentralized with real transaction privacy? As malicious artificial intelligence becomes ever more powerful, gigantic institutions and the oligarchs that control them will have exponentially more power to control humanity. At that point, it will be too late because the AI will be too fast and too powerful to fight against. None of the other cryptocurrencies today are capable of protecting humanity from any of these threats. We are all forced to trust gigantic banks to keep our funds safe, but their untrustworthy business models are inherently dependent upon a banking system that constantly blows up unsustainable debt bubbles. As we explained in our Gini book, these economic bubbles are not necessary for a healthy economy. In fact, these bubbles repeatedly destabilize societies and economies and transfer wealth and political power from the poorest to the richest humans. Then, as we've illustrated in our previous books, untrustworthy institutions exploit preventable crises to further concentrate their wealth and power, which destroys democracy and capitalism in many ways. None of the other major cryptocurrencies today are viable for real-world commerce. Why? Because their monetary policies are broken and their money supplies are too concentrated and controlled by crypto oligarchs. This gives them power to manipulate the value of their currencies every single day. This creates high market volatility, which makes it impossible for a critical mass of merchants to have enough confidence to accept those other cryptocurrencies in real-world commerce.
Gini was founded upon the principle that technology alone is not enough. A cryptocurrency system is just an interesting science project if it doesn't protect our privacy, our human rights, and our economic liberty in the real world. Gini is different. We're building the cryptocurrency that Bitcoin was meant to be, based on the non-partisan principles of economic sustainability that are critical to humanity's future. We invented secure and scalable online payment processing in 1996 when we invented AuthorizeNet, the world's first and largest online payment gateway. Then we launched AngelPay, the world's first non-profit payment processor. We've also written non-partisan books and dozens of articles about how to build sustainable and equitable non-partisan economic and political systems. Our team's decades of experience building secure, high-volume global payment systems for real-world commerce and our proven philosophical commitment to liberating humanity from the stranglehold of giant banks, corporations, and governments makes our team uniquely qualified for Gini's important mission. Gini's decentralized exchange is designed to protect honest humans and merchants from market manipulation and the corruption of gigantic centralized institutions. This is increasingly important in a world where AI and the self-serving collusion between gigantic corporations and governments are becoming destabilizing forces in global financial markets. A commitment to preserving transaction privacy preserves the integrity of democratic societies. Without transaction privacy, meaningful democratic governance cannot exist. This is why Gini's technical architecture is designed to ensure that transaction privacy is protected without significantly impacting transaction speed. Gini's sustainable, transparent, and equitable monetary policy automatically prevents destructive concentrations of economic and political power. Without sustainable monetary policies, economies and societies degrade, resulting in political and economic turmoil that destroys the wealth creation engines of every country. Gini's unique value streams are designed to create long-term ecosystem sustainability, which is how purchasing power is distributed throughout an economy to ensure broad-based wealth creation and capital formation. Gini's inclusive and non-partisan consensus-based governance structure ensures that Gini's technical development and administration are transparent and sustainable, which is essential to earning the trust of stakeholders throughout the Gini ecosystem. Gini's unique and decentralized precious metals exchange is designed to support sustainable, conflict-free mining companies and community cooperatives throughout the developing world. This returns more profits to local villages and provides everybody in the Gini ecosystem affordable access to a large pipeline of tangible precious metals, which will increase the stability of the Gini cryptocurrency. Gini's commitment to the sustainable economic principles in our books helps to educate people about how a sustainable economic system can and should work. In fact, we're building a Gini School of Economics to cure the ideological diseases and Wall Street distortions that have been destroying our global economic system since the 1970s. Non-partisan and historically accurate economics education is essential to prevent the major economic disasters that politically tainted economic policies are creating around the world today. Gini's commitment to using our skills, technologies, and resources to protect human rights is a meaningful and gratifying way to provide a valuable service to humanity while simultaneously generating wealth for everybody throughout the Gini ecosystem. This is the optimal way to generate the purchasing power and sustainable economic activity that is necessary to achieve truly sustainable economies and societies. We encourage you to explore the Gini website and the Gini book to learn more about Gini and why our team is uniquely suited to this important mission. Together, with your support, we can restore integrity and justice to this increasingly unjust world.